Hey, welcome to the Cam Otis Show. On this episode, we're joined by Zach Nannini. Zach is a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual and is also a championship trap shooter, a 7-time ATA All-America trap shooter to be exact. Zach Otis and I talk about the sport of trap shooting and what innovations have been developed in the recent years. We also talk about the business of being a professional trap shooter, including finding sponsors, preparing for competitions, and staying sharp during the off-season. Zach shares the advantages of working with people that you like and how it can benefit your business. How does spending time doing what you love help your business? Why should you be focusing on the process instead of the results? And how in the world did Zach shoot 775 clays in a row? We dive into all this and much more on this fantastic episode. Quick reminder to rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. You can also find the full videos of the show on our YouTube page. And if you learned something from Zach, Otis, or I in our conversation, make sure to share this episode with someone else so they can learn it too. This episode is brought to you by Tribe and Purpose. The transition from college to that first career is a difficult one, and it's even harder when you lose your sense of identity. If you're an athlete who just hung up the cleats, it's hard to go from being a rugby player to being Joe in accounting. We created Next is Best to help retired college athletes use their skills to create an impact through entrepreneurship. Next is Best by Know Your Tribe will help you to smoothen that rough transition by helping you establish a clear sense of purpose, an actionable path to success, and the tools you need to manage your life. Your 20s are a confusing and chaotic time. Next is Best gives you the tools you need to make sense of the chaos and make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. You can learn more about Next is Best by Know Your Tribe at findyourpurpose.coach. That's findyourpurpose.coach. And now here's Cam and Otis with the show.
Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show, man. I love that countdown thing. It gets me all up, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I got to say to myself, and action. And you know what? We're joined today by a new good friend of mine, soon to be an even better friend after we get done with him today, Zach Nannini. Zach, man, how you doing?
You know, I'm wonderful today. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to get to know you better, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
So I just got to do a quick little. Zach is a professional shooter that has a hobby in the financial advisor business. I think that would be that's how I would coin what you do with your life. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty accurate description. I was just in Tucson, Arizona last week shooting a tournament for the week. I'm very blessed that a lot of my clients are at the shoots that I go to for my financial planning practice, and it allows me to get a lot of gun time and a lot of face-to-face time with the people that I care about.
That's great. And you know what? There's a great lesson right there for us business owners. Is you only work with the people you like, right? You know, and if the people you like happen to be at the gun range, then they might be your clients.
Yeah, it's I spent a lot of time when I started in the business just kind of running my tires in the dirt, trying to figure out how to build it. And you know, I was going to all these networking events and going to coffees with random people, and I was having a little bit of a struggle, to be honest with you. And then at some point I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go do what I love more, and I'm going to go shoot more and go be around people that I like and ask them what they think I should do. And they're like, yeah, just hang out here. And then pretty soon I'm getting referrals, and they're wanting to go out and shoot sporting clays with me or trap, and we're having a great time. And a lot of business was done that way, and God's been good, so it's been a blessing.
It's the golf club, and not the actual swinging golf club, but it's the 19th hole analogy. As a matter of fact, I was talking with a friend of mine, Jason Miller. We were chatting about that yesterday morning. Hanging out at the place that you like to hang out, there's probably some other people that like to hang out there too that are probably a good fit for the business. Man, I'm harping on this a lot because it is such a simple thing, and you learn the hard way too, right? Beating yourself up, going to networking things, and talking to people. Ugh.
Yeah, and I think they're really passionate about what I do because they're passionate about what they do, and it's in the same zone. So, you have someone that has the same likes and dislikes, they think the same way. And, I'm a little bit more on the conservative side when it comes to money management. And most of my clients, believe it or not, they like that. They're not as aggressive. They're not like, oh, well, we want to put a bunch of money in Bitcoin or something like that, right? They're like, they want to know that they've worked their whole life for something and they want it to be a little bit more protected. So, and naturally, that's who I am. Just a little bit more conservative on what we do. But the shooting side of it, huge benefits for everyone involved. And like sporting clays, they say is the new golf because, you get to go out there and spend time with 3 or 4 or 5 guys, and there's a lot of time in between stations. With trap shooting, which is what I primarily shoot, you don't get that time until after the day's done, like maybe at lunch or maybe, at the bar afterwards or dinner. But during the day, there's no talking in between shots with trap. You're just kind of out there focusing on hitting the target, and then all the fun is done on the after hours.
Give us a quick little explanation of the two, because I know, but I imagine there's probably quite a few of our audience that have gone out to the trap range and shot, but not really understanding what you're talking about.
Yeah. So the 3 most common games shot in America right now are trap, skeet, and sporting clays. Now, trap is a game where you're standing anywhere from 16 yards to 27 yards away from the machine, and the machine is in a concrete house. Now, when you call pull, it's going to throw a target 42 miles an hour away from you at a height of 9 to 11 feet. So 9 to 11 feet high in the air from the ground, 42 miles an hour, and it's oscillating from left to right. So think of targets going away from you, like if you were hunting a bird flushing up away. That's a trap target. Skeet targets, you're shooting left and right angles at closer distances. Most of the shots on a skeet field, you're less than 10 yards away from the target when you're shooting it, and there's a lot of lateral left and right shots. There's a high house and a low house. The high house is on the left, the low house is on the right. And as you work around the horseshoe of the skeet field, you shoot different angles. In the center post, which we call post 4, it's the most severe angle where the targets are going left to right, which require the most amount of lead. Think about if you're out hunting and you've got a bird crossing across the field and you've got to give it some lead to kill it. That's a skeet field. Sporting clays is a combination of all of the shots that you're ever going to see hunting on a skeet field or on a trap field. The best way to describe it is every single sporting clays course is different, and they change it constantly. So it's usually anywhere from 10 to 14 stations that you walk through, and usually these courses are around a mile in length. They're just kind of spread out. You might take a golf cart and they might be in the woods or on flat grounds. But one golf course that you go to is going to have it layout this way. One golf course is going to have it that way. That's how sporting clays is. And some of the targets are in the air over your head. Some of the targets are coming towards you. Some of the targets are bouncing on the ground like rabbits. But it's a complete hodgepodge of every single angle and every single flight that you could imagine when you're shooting sporting clays.
Awesome.
I'm really curious about your approach with the different types there, because when you're talking about the trap and the skeet shooting, it sounded a lot like what came to mind for me, from a sports perspective, is like baseball. Like it is this to this. It's what it sounded like. It's very standardized, and there's not that much variation inside of it. It's more how you can improve inside of the box, right? But then when you're talking about the sporting clays, that sounds like it's all over the place. How is your approach different from one to the other of the variation versus the standardized?
Yeah. So, and I want to be very clear. I'm a national champion trap shooter. I'm not a national champion skeet shooter or sporting clay shooter. So I'm getting into the sporting clays and learning, but there's guys that do that at a whole other level that I'm not there yet, to be honest with you. For trap, I've got a bunch of titles. And what we've noticed in trap shooting is, because it is a little bit more standardized, the scores are a lot higher in general. So you need to hit 100 out of 100 or 200 out of 200. My longest run that I've ever gone on was 775 clays in a row without missing. So it's a mental game where, yes, you pretty much know what's coming, but to not make a mistake for 600, 700, 800 shots is is mentally draining. Now, on the flip side, sporting clays, everything you shoot is going to be different, but it's expected that you're not going to run it. You shoot a 97 out of 100 or a 98 out of 100, you're a stud, right? So the variation there causes people to have to learn, okay, how am I going to make this shot? And the only way you do it is by shooting it a bunch. So you go learn how to shoot these shots over and over and over again. But it's a mental difference of, I can miss one or two and win a sporting clay shoot. I can't miss one at a trap shoot. Not saying one's harder than the other. It's just different. And when I approach trap shooting, I know you can't miss. If you miss, you're done.
So what is that like mentally? Because again, it takes me right back to, baseball, basketball is a similar thing with the free throws, where it's all very standardized. If you think about a pitcher in baseball, they can all hit and strike, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, but it's, can you do it in the bottom of the ninth? And the pressure, I like to call them a lot, baseball especially, like a pressure sport. There's a very similar thing there. How do you approach that? Because that's very different. Like I'm in the rugby world. It's not a pressure sport at all. It's all about reacting to what's there and the creativity and the environment and those type of things. It's not the pressure of the moment. The pressure of the moment, I don't even notice the pressure when I'm coaching rugby, frankly. I'm just coaching. Whereas you're feeling that pressure every single time you pull the trigger. So how do you approach that differently to relieve that pressure or live in it, however you approach that?
So I've been shooting since I was 12. I'm 31 years old, okay? I still feel the pressure. But I think the 200,000 registered tournament targets that I have under my belt has helped. I've shot, lots and lots of Remington shells. So all over the country, and putting yourself in that position many, many times. So example, the first time I broke my first 100 straight, 100 out of 100, I was shaken, right? Now, that being said, I broke a couple of them last week, and it wasn't even a big deal because I've done it so many times. Now, it's like weight training or anything else. If it's new to you, it's going to be hard. But if you do it a few times and you're like, okay, I've lifted this much weight, I've done this, it becomes natural. It becomes more natural. And the more times you do it, I think the process, the better. Now, if I am in a high pressure situation where I'm feeling nervous, a lot of what I do is breathing techniques. So I just breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm trying to lower my heart rate. They call it a centering breath. It's 6 seconds in, holding for a few seconds, and 6 seconds out. I'll try to lower my heart rate and get myself under control. And then I always go back to the process. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to break the target, but then they forget the process. And the main process in shooting is my head down on the gun? Are my eyes on the target? Am I holding still? Am I making a clean shot? Those are the things that I go back to in the high pressure situations where your training just kind of kicks in. And most people go into their last 5 shots and they're like, okay, I just want to get this over. And they start speeding and rushing and pushing, and they forget their fundamentals. They forget what got them there for the first 95 shots. So I think it's very, very important in business and shooting and whatever. If something's working, don't change it. And if you feel yourself getting nervous, you've got to take a step back and say, okay, how do I get my emotions under control? And the better you are at getting those emotions under control, the more successful you'll close those scores, in my opinion.
How did you shift from, the 12-year-old dad taking you to the trap range, the skeet range, and popping a couple of rounds out probably with the 20 gauge when you started, to becoming a pro, and winning all kinds of tournaments in college and beyond? How does that leap happen?
Yeah, so I think luck, really. So when I started, it was just my mom and dad wanting me to learn gun safety. And my dad wasn't even a shooter at all. It was just, he was an Italian guy. He had a pistol in the house. My mom was like, hey, you're going to teach him how to shoot. So we went out and we shot rifles and pistols, at a little local range in San Jose. It was called 10th Street Range. And that's where I shot my first shots ever. And it was no shotgun shooting. And I fell in love with just going out and spending time with my dad and shooting and enjoying something together because he was a workaholic. And if we weren't doing that, he was out working, So in that, we actually had a friend. His name is Tim Silvera, and we were painting his house, and he was doing windows in our house. We were trading work, contractor trade work, and we noticed that he had some guns, and we said, "Hey, where do you shoot? We've never seen you at our range." And he's like, "Well, I shoot at Metcalf Field Sports Park. It's a trap range." And we're like, "Well, we've never done trap. What's that?" And he's like, "Well, it's cool. It's like clay pigeons flying through the air with shotguns." And my eyes got all big, and I'm like, "Well, where do we do this?" And he's like, "Come out next Wednesday." So we loaded up, went out Wednesday. He gave us a shotgun to use for the night and kind of gave us the basics. And after 25 shots, I was hooked like a fish on a line. Like, I was like, "I'm doing this." And I told my dad, "No more rifle and pistol shooting. We're shotgun shooters now." And then I just started shooting leagues, and then, got better. And I won most improved on the league the first time out. And then they're like, "Hey, you should shoot weekend shoots." So we call them club shoots, right? So you go to these little club shoots on the weekend. They're kind of small. I started winning those. And then they said, "Hey, you should start shooting the ATA shoots, which are registered, sanctioned events," which I started going, and I started winning junior in those. And then they said, "Hey, you should go to the state shoot." So it was just a natural progression where you went to the state, and then I won some stuff at the state shoot. And then they're like, "You should go to the national shoot." So every time you hit a level where you're kind of winning, it's like, hey, there's another level. So once I went to the national shoot and I won some trophies, I was like, wow, I really love this. And just decided I'm going to start traveling around the country and shooting clay birds, and did that throughout all of my young years, and now am currently doing it again at as high a level as I can.
One thing that has been, when I was preparing for the episode that came to mind is all of the different, just put it broadly, it's the smaller sports that there's less money around and those different things. And making that jump to professional is much more difficult. And even professional doesn't necessarily look like that. Like, I know that how many rugby players do we know that work at Home Depot that are professional rugby players? Like that's just kind of how it goes. How did you make that jump to the professional and maybe balance that with, still working on the side or making the big leap with sponsors? Or how did you approach that? And I guess even more so, did you fall into that, or was this something where you had to lay out the plan to figure out your way forward?
So I think, professional shooter is, like you said, kind of a title. You've got these professional rugby players and they're working at Home Depot, right? So there's some shoots where you can make a ton of money. The most money that I've made in a day is $11,000 at a shoot in one day. At 100 targets, boom, 11 grand. That being said, they're far and few between. So you could go all week and make, $500 or $1,000, and it costs you $2,000 to go down to the shoot. So, there's some sports, that are unlike golf, where you could be the best in the world and still not make a ton of money doing it. But these guys love it, right? So it's like the guys that drive race cars, and they're like, "Man, I love doing this," and they spend money chasing their dreams. I think shooting kind of falls into that category at some level. There is a big shoot coming up in Dubai where they're giving $300,000, but that's not something that is like an everyday occurrence. So,
right.
You have to kind of gauge, okay, what am I doing here? I've been blessed to be able to do it and run my business. My business helps make it so where it's all inclusive. When it comes to sponsors, they just want you to present yourself well, and they want you to win. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're representing the products well and you're winning, then they're probably going to approach you. And if they don't approach you, then you need to approach them. When I was approached by Remington a long time ago, I was the #1 junior shooter in the country. So they came to me and they said, "Hey, you're the #1. We would like to," and they called it the captain, the junior captain in 2009. "We want to bring you on to Remington, and we want to help you with your shells." And I said, I would love to represent Remington. And I had been shooting Remington the whole time. So I was already a brand ambassador. I was already loyal to the product because I thought it was a better product, and they rewarded me by being faithful to that product. Everything I had ended up being sponsored by was the products I was already using, and then I was just using them, at a high level. So I think, if you really want to look for sponsorship in anything you do, find the good products that you want to use them, and then go prove that you're good. And if you prove that you're good and you represent the product well, and you don't dress like a slob, or you don't make a fool of yourself when you miss a target or you lose, then they're looking for people that can represent them well. And I think that's most important. But reputation, character, and the way you present yourself, I think, are the most important things when you're looking at being an ambassador of the sport.
How much does that carry over into the financial advising area? Because to me, that is also how you'd probably want to be attracting those clients of, I'm the professional, that I'm going to be consistent with this, and giving them that image as well. Have you noticed that comparison at all?
It's the same. I mean, it's the same. I mean, if I was doing something else, if I was an oil well guy, then I don't think it would matter, because those guys, rougher around the edges. But, in my line of work, you're dealing with people's lives, you're dealing with their finances, you're dealing with their most intimate secrets of their life. So they want to know that you have enough ability to keep that information private and respect it. And I think that starts with the way you handle yourself on the line. If you go out there and you miss an event and you're throwing shells and you're cussing and you're upset about your bad event, they're going to say, well, what's this guy going to be doing when the market's tanking or when things aren't going the way they need them to go, right? You want the pilot of the plane to be calm regardless of how much turbulence there is. You don't want him to be freaking out, right?
Yeah. Well, it just made me, I want to stay in this a little bit because I find it really interesting because, you don't just pick up the shotgun Saturday morning and go out and shoot. There's a lot that goes into this, and how do you manage that time between, and I'll just pick three big categories: the shooting, the business, and oh, by the way, there's somebody in that house that you live in that you probably have to spend some time with too, right? And how do you manage all that?
Yeah, it is difficult. I mean, because you got to say, okay, what's more important now? Working on the business, working on my, marriage, relationship, life, spirituality, sanity, and then shooting, right? And, what I'll tell you is when I started shooting, I used to practice a lot. So I was very blessed that my mom and dad made it available for me to practice. And me and dad would go out to the range and I would shoot 300 to 500 clays in a night. And I would do that a couple nights a week, So at the beginning, when you're forming your fundamentals, I think training is the most important part to move up the ladder. You have to do it a lot of times. I don't remember exactly the quote, so don't hold me to it, but I think it was 10,000 movements at mastery for anything that you're trying to learn, right? So if you're wanting to get to 10,000 movements, I want to get there as quickly as possible. Eat that crap sandwich as quick as you can, get to the next spot, and then, you really start to peel the layers of the onion and learn what's going on. So I spent a lot of time training in my early years, a lot of time practicing. Living in California, I got 12 months a year of training, where now I live in Missouri, and we really only get 6 months of the year that you can shoot because of the weather. So that's been the hardest barrier for me is there's guys on the West Coast that never stop shooting. And I've got to basically put my gun away, which my gun is put away right now between now and probably February. So I won't fire a shot. So the things that I like to do in those off-season times are just do gun mounts in my garage, maybe work some eye exercises, think about what do I want to achieve, write my goals for the next year. Those are the things that keep my mind on it. But I don't get the chance of actually shooting clays. So if it was early in my career, I think that would really hurt me. Based on the amount of time that I've shot now, I don't feel it hurts me as much because I've built such a solid fundamental plan of I know what I need to do. If this was 15 or 20 years ago and I wasn't shooting half the year, I'd probably have a huge learning curve jumping back into it after 6 months of being off.
That just reminds me of my shooting, because Yeah, before hunting season. Yeah, I'll go out and, like, especially archery season, go out and shoot in the yard a bit more because, the muscle atrophy thing. But it's not, it's more of that than it is how do I shoot, how do I hold, and particularly rifle. It's almost a natural thing at this point in life that's like, yeah, I'm still on target. Okay, I'm good. So, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there.
If you've done it enough times, it becomes natural. But it's when you're new and you don't know where home is, that's where the problem is. If you don't know how to analyze your own mistakes and figure out what's going on, then you got to go back and you got to practice and practice and practice until you know, oh, hey, I know what I'm doing wrong. I'm moving on the call, or I'm pushing the gun too hard, or I'm flat-footed, or I'm not seeing it really well. But if you can't diagnose that in a second, well, then you got to go out and practice until you can diagnose that. I think that's where the kind of the average shooter is versus like the top shooter. The top shooter can make a mistake, diagnose it, and fix it within a shot. So, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've missed 1 out of the first 10 targets and then ended up with a 99 out of 100 because I knew, okay, I know exactly what I did wrong on that shot, and I'm not going to do that again. And then I finish off the event and run the back 90 birds. Happens all the time.
Is your approach, you talk about being, not able to get out there shooting as often because of, the winter and just the weather and those type of things. Does that shift your approach at all? Because I can see if you're in California, you're always in season, you're always going. But then, you're talking about these events and going to particular events around the country. It almost seems like you'd wind up more of a rather than like an off season and the season. It sounds like you'd almost be into a training camp approach, like you'd see in a lot of fight sports, to where you already have your basics and you're ramping up to it. Is that kind of your approach, or is it like once you're on until it starts snowing again?
That is my approach. So what I'll do is I'll start the season with a little bit of heavy training to make sure that I'm back on the game again. So, let's say February, March, April, if there's a good weather day, I'm busting out of the office and I'll shoot 500 rounds that day. And I'll just make sure that everything fits. But like my state shoot starts in May, and then the national championships is in August. So from May to August, it's on. Okay. Now, and there's a lot of shooting done in that compressed amount of time. So April, I'm really trying to ramp up my training to get to the point where I'm ready in May. Once May comes around, if I haven't got it figured out, it's going to be a rough summer. So, because at that point you're in it and you're just going from tournament to tournament, and there's not a lot of time to go back and retool or train. You're just kind of with what you got because you're going from Kansas to Illinois to Texas to, Florida, and you're moving around and you're like, okay, I'm done on Sunday, and I got another shoot here starting on Wednesday. I mean, with travel time, there's not a lot of time to go back home and work on a bunch of stuff. The other thing is if you're shooting a ton of shots, I think the best thing to do if you're having a good or a bad shoot is give yourself a break in between shoots. Like maybe it's 2 or 3 days. The last thing I want to do is train on those 2 or 3 days in between a tournament because you're just wearing out your battery for the next shoot.
Yeah, the periodization, just like any other athlete, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's just repetition will take you out. And like what's really cool about the Grand, which is our nationals, it's basically, I mean, it's from the 2nd to the 12th next year. So it's 10, 11 days of shooting in a row, and you're shooting 300 targets a day for the first,
This episode is brought to you by Tribe and Purpose. If you're a college athlete who just hung up the cleats and you're looking to make an impact as an entrepreneur, then Next is Best by Know Your Tribe is perfect for you. Get a clear sense of purpose and a path to success so that you can make a bigger impact and make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. Learn more today at findyourpurpose.coach. That's findyourpurpose.coach. Now let's get back to the show.
What I was asking was, plainly, you're probably not just working as a financial advisor during the winter months, November to February, and then going back out and going shooting for the rest of the time of the year. How do you design your business in a way that you can, have that lifestyle still without that kind of, feast and famine mentality?
Yeah, so I think the best way to do it is to trust other good people. I am a kind of controlling type A personality. And in the beginning, when I was building this, I didn't really want anyone's help. I just wanted to do it on. Yeah, so I think the best way to do it is to trust other good people. I am a kind of controlling type A personality. And in the beginning, when I was building this, I didn't really want anyone's help. I just wanted to do it on my own. What I realized is to be able to get my schedule back and to be able to go out and meet the client. I am a kind of controlling type A personality. And in the beginning, when I was building this, I didn't really want anyone's help. I just wanted to do it on my own. What I realized is to be able to get my schedule back and to be able to go out and meet the clients that I want to meet, I need to have really good back office people and really good support team. So like my right hand right now, her name is Claudia, and she get my schedule back and to be able to go out and meet the clients that I want to meet, I need to have really good back office people and really good support team. So like my right hand right now, her name is Claudia, and she takes care of everything for me in the back office and allows me to travel and do what I need to do. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to go because she's handling and she takes care of everything for me in the back office and allows me to travel and do what I need to do. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to go because she's handling all the fires that happen while I'm on the road. What I've found though is in my business, I probably schedule my face-to-face client meetings 9 months out of the year, truly. That's where I'm doing that. Those 3 months that I'm on the road, I'm aggregating relationships. So I'm really spending time getting to know new people and spending time with my existing base and enhancing that relationship. And then I'm basically doing a lot of my review meeting or initial meetings in those other client meetings 9 months out of the year, truly. That's where I'm doing that. Those 3 months that I'm on the road, I'm aggregating relationships. So I'm really spending time getting to know new people and spending time with my existing base and enhancing that relationship. And then I'm basically doing a lot of my review meeting or initial meetings in those other 9 months. So I don't find the need to have those meetings during that shooting season as long as I'm reinforcing relationships. Now, that being said, I'm always available. So if someone calls me or if they need some time, of course, we're going to make some time, or I'm going to get them in touch with somebody that can handle something ASAP because meetings in those other 9 months. So I don't find the need to have those meetings during that shooting season as long as I'm reinforcing relationships. Now, that being said, I'm always available. So if someone calls me or if they need some time, of course, we're going to make some time, or I'm going to get them in touch with somebody that can handle something ASAP because, I mean, their money can't wait. But as far as a review meeting, they're during shooting season too, so they're not wanting to talk during shooting season. They're like, hey, can we talk about this when we've got more free time and when things are slow down? It's the same way that my clients that are accountants, they don't want to have a review meeting in April during tax time. They want to do it when they're because I mean, their money can't wait. But as far as a review meeting, they're during shooting season too, so they're not wanting to talk during shooting season. They're like, hey, can we talk about this when we've got more free time and when things are slow down? It's the same way that my clients that are accountants, they don't want to have a review meeting in April during tax time. They want to do it when we've got more free time and when things are slow down. It's the same way that my clients that are accountants, they don't want to have a review meeting in April during tax time. They want to do it when they're available. So, more than not, people don't want to have more than 4 meetings with me a year. I mean, once a quarter, that's kind of where we're touching base. If they're, really hands-on client, it might be once a month, but that's a very rare scenario. Some people just want to touch base once a year. Hey, let's have a refresher once a year, especially if they're that young family and they're just, working up the ladder. We set it all up. We get them going. Once a year, we're checking in. Hey, did you get a raise? Hey, did you have any more babies? Has anything changed? not a lot going on. It's your retirees that really want to spend time with you, because when this market's shopping around and we're in distribution, that's the most important part of their plan. Forecasting, figuring out what's going on, figuring out how much money we need. That's something that does require at least a quarterly review meeting. And we can easily fit that in the schedule. And most of the shooting isn't back to back to back. So I might be at a shoot for 1 week and then home working for 1 week. And then the next week I'm at a shoot, and then the next week I'm home. So other than August, which is where they have the national championships and another big shoot that basically takes up 3 of my 4 weeks in August, every other month I try to limit my shooting to the maximum of 2 weeks per month in that month, so that I have 2 more weeks to take care of all the things that need to be taken care of. When this market's shopping around and we're in distribution, that's the most important part of their plan. Forecasting, figuring out what's going on, figuring out how much money we need. That's something that does require at least a quarterly review meeting. And we can easily fit that in the schedule. And most of the shooting isn't back to back to back. So I might be at a shoot for 1 week and then home working for 1 week. And then the next week I'm at a shoot, and then the next week I'm home. So other than August, which is where they have the national championships and another big shoot that basically takes up 3 of my 4 weeks in August, every other month I try to limit my shooting to the maximum of 2 weeks per month in that month, so that I have 2 more weeks to take care of all the things that need to be taken care of. Well, I think most people, as we talked about earlier, are going to gravitate to people with the same likes and dislikes. So I've found myself shooting clay pigeons, which is a very niche place, right? It's a small little sector in the world of 1,000 people or 2,000 people nationwide that do this, right? So everyone in there is really passionate about what I do. The good news for me is I shoot well enough that most people are going to ask me questions about shooting or ask me questions about something that I'm doing on the shooting range that kind of naturally sparks up a conversation, and it allows for an open door to build a relationship. I'm not going there with the intention of, okay, I'm going to get all these people as clients. I'm going there with the intention of being friends with these people and developing relationships, and then seeing what happens, because they love to shoot, they love to hunt, they love to do what I love to do.
I don't like to use a whole
and
lot
so
of words.
If we just spend time together and we build a relationship, they might not even become my client, but they might refer me to someone that will become my client later, because they know, hey, Zach's here. He shows up. He's on time. He doesn't he doesn't have his hair growing too long. He's just kind of doing what he needs to do. And he's a friend, and I consider him a friend. And if they were to ask me to help them, go work on their game at the practice trap, I'm going to do it. If they say, hey, Zach, I have a question about shooting, what kind of lenses do you use and why, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to found myself shooting clay pigeons, which is a very niche place, right? It's a small little sector in the world of 1,000 people or 2,000 people nationwide that do this, right? So everyone in there is really passionate about what I do. The good news for me is I shoot well enough that most people are going to ask me questions about shooting or ask me questions about something that I'm doing on the shooting range that kind of naturally sparks up a conversation, and it allows for an open door to build a relationship. I'm not going there with the intention of, okay, I'm going to get all these people as clients. I'm going there with the intention of being friends with these people and developing relationships. Most people are going to ask me questions about shooting or ask me questions about something that I'm doing on the shooting range that kind of naturally sparks up a conversation, and it allows for an open door to build a relationship. I'm not going there with the intention of, okay, I'm going to, get all these people as clients. I'm going there with the intention of being friends with these people and developing relationship. I'm not going there with the intention of, okay, I'm going to get all these people as clients. I'm going there with the intention of being friends with these people and developing relationships and then seeing what happens, because they love to shoot, they love to hunt, they love to do what I love to do. And so if we just spend time together and then seeing what happens, because they love to shoot, they love to hunt, they love to do what I love to do. And so if we just spend time together and we build a relationship, they might not even become my client, but they might refer me to someone that will become my client later, because they know, hey, Zach's, here. He shows up. He's on time. He doesn't, he doesn't have his hair growing too long. He's just kind of, doing what he needs to do. And he's a friend, and I consider him a friend. And if they were to ask me to help them, go work on their game at the practice trap, I'm going to do it. If they say, hey, Zach, I have a question about, shooting, what kind of lenses do you use and why? I'm going to do it. I don't care if they're my client, not my client. I mean, that's just being a human being, right? Just help people. And if you help enough people, then I think life works out. So I don't set a monetary goal or a measuring system or this for that. I go out, I do what I love, I spend time with people. And what's really been helpful is I spend time with my good clients, and they naturally bring people into the circle.
That makes me think
because they know
something I've seen
the
a lot
business relationship that I have with them and what value that I've provided so far.
When I was in college.
And so when they have a friend, they're like, hey, we should go to dinner with Zach.
We play in the spring.
And then it's them bringing them into my circle versus me bringing them into my circle. And there's a natural referral or a natural reference there, because a human being, right? Just help people. And if you help enough people, then I think life works out. So I don't set a monetary goal or a measuring system or this for that. I go out, I do what I love, I spend time with people. Goal or a measuring system or this for that. I go out, I do what I love, I spend time with people. And what's really been helpful is I spend time with my good clients, and they naturally bring people into the circle, because they know the business relationship that I have with them and what value that I've provided so far.
Right.
And so when they have a friend, they're like, hey, we should go to dinner with Zach. And then it's them bringing them into my circle versus me bringing them into my circle. And there's a natural referral or a natural reference there, because the business relationship that I have with them and what value that I've provided so far. And so when they have a friend, they're like, hey, we should go to dinner with Zach. And then it's them bringing them into my circle versus me bringing them into my circle. And there's a natural referral or a natural reference there, because they can say, Zach's done good work, or Zach's been honest and truthful with me the whole time. I might not always like the way it turns out, but it's at least upfront and to the point and honest. So people should, in my opinion, spend more time doing what they love. Spend more, because they can say, Zach's done good work, or Zach's been honest and truthful with me the whole time. I might not always like the way it turns out, but it's at least
and this is
upfront and to the point and honest. So,
but
people should, in my opinion, spend more time doing what they love. Spend more time hanging out with the people that they enjoy.
Anything coming?
And then just don't try to like squeeze it, right? Like don't try to make stuff happen if it's not happening. Just allow it to happen and be of an abundance mentality to where you can allow the people to want to work with you because you're not desperate. And I think that's a very powerful statement in any business because most people get desperate and then they start to look desperate. And I don't think that's attractive. Nobody really wants to work with the guy that paints houses that's, can't paint a house, that nobody wants to work. Don't try to make stuff happen if it's not happening. Just allow it to happen and be of an abundance mentality to where you can allow the people to want to work with you because you're not desperate. And I think that's a very powerful statement in any business because most people get desperate and then they start the people to want to work with you because you're not desperate. And I think that's a very powerful statement in any business because most people get desperate and then they start to look desperate. And I don't think that's attractive. Nobody really wants to work with the guy that paints houses that's, can't paint a house, that nobody wants to work with him, right? They want to work with the guy that's booked 3 months out because they know everybody is liking what he's doing. And, it's not a fake it till you make it. It's just do your job, do good work. And then you're going to get the results.
Oh, yeah.
You knock it up. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said it a lot quicker than I could say it. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said it a lot quicker than I could say it.
That's right. There's still that wadding that comes out, and you go, "Yeah, dang it, there it goes. I missed."
And I could say it.
Mm-hmm. What happened to the TV show? I used to love that there was a sporting clay, not a sport. No, I think it was a trap. I think they were shooting trap. TV show that was on years ago. You're giving me that look like Otis. That was before I was born. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Not a whole lot of build up, is there?
number one thing, focus on the process, not the results. The process is going to drive the results. So I've had shoots where I've shot bad, and I've had months where they weren't the best months in my business. I didn't measure either of my shooting or my financial advising by the result. I measured it by what I was putting into the pipe. And what I was doing every day, so I've had shoots where I've shot bad, and I've had months where they weren't the best months in my business. I didn't measure either of my shooting or my financial advising by the result. I measured it by what I was putting into the pipe. And what I was doing every day, I was shooting, I was doing my gun mounts, I was focusing, I was working on my game, or in financial advising. Did I make the phone calls that I needed to make today? Did I go out and try to serve people in the community?
I had no idea.
You can't always get the result that you want,
Lincoln,
but what you can control is what you do every day. And I think being consistent and having a process in anything and sticking with was shooting. I was doing my gun mounts. I was focusing. I was working on my game. Or in financial advising, did I make the phone calls that I needed to make today? Did I go out and try to serve people in the community?
So I just assumed
you can't always get the result that you want, but what you can control is what you do every day.
Lincoln, Missouri,
and I think being consistent and having I go out and try to serve people in the community. You can't always get the result that you want, but what you can control is what you do every day. And I think being consistent and having a process in anything and sticking with the process regardless of the results is something that across the board matters no matter what.
Yeah.
Process in anything and sticking with the process regardless of the results is something that across the board matters no matter what. I feel rejuvenated. Like my thing is, it is not a cheap hobby by any means, right? So it's something that costs a little bit of money.
Camden,
and so
what'd you learn?
when I find
Just
that
a
you
little
like
bit of really
things that are a little bit
interesting
better
perspective kind of
in life, you know, whether
you
it's
talked about, Zach, you hit 775 clays in a row. I did a quick Google on my phone without diving too far into it. Steph Curry hit.
I feel rejuvenated. Like my
just
thing is,
a little bit of point of reference. I mean, we're talking about like
it is not a cheap hobby by any means, right? So it's something that costs a little bit of money. And so when I find that you like things that are a little bit better in life, you know, whether it's fine steaks or, you know, shooting or, you know, nice cars, right? If you have something that you enjoy, it gives you purpose and drive to earn it. So, you know, if you're living a life where, you know, everything's bland and everything's kind of mugged, well, it's hard to get up and go do your work and do it at a high level. But when you're rewarding yourself with something that you love and something that you're passionate about,
Zach,
you know the only way that you can keep doing that is if you keep working at that high level, and one feeds the other. So you come back, you're rejuvenated, and you're like, man, I can't wait for shooting season in February, and I'm going to go work. I'm going to go make this happen between now and then because you got to work as hard as you can while you can, because I know there's going to be times of the year where I'm out having fun with my friends. And so you have to plan. Same thing happens with a farmer. A farmer doesn't get paid until he harvests, but he's working, getting that crop in, and then for a while it's just sitting there growing, right? So there's a lot of that in my business for sure. Love and something that you're passionate about, you know the only way that you can keep doing that is if you keep working at that high level, and one feeds the other. So you come back, you're rejuvenated, and you're like, man, I can't wait for shooting season in February, and I'm going to go work. I'm going to go make this happen between now and then because you got to work as hard as you can while you can, because I know there's going to be times of the year where I'm out having fun with my friends. And so you have to plan. Same thing happens with a farmer. A farmer doesn't get paid until he harvests, but he's working, getting that crop in, and then for a while it's just sitting there growing, right? So there's a lot of that in my business for sure. thing happens with a farmer. A farmer doesn't get paid until he harvests, but he's working, getting that crop in, and then for a while it's just sitting there growing, right?
Appreciate you hanging out with us today.
There's a lot of that in my business
your
for sure.
Insights into the shooting sports. Awesome. Thank you again, Jack. And yeah, Camden, we will run us out, please.
Well, I got to give a quick shout out to talking too much shooting. Quick shout out to our producer Norman Amuse on that, because he's the one who makes all the magic happen, makes us look pretty, right? All right, thank y'all for listening to the Cam Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest Zach Nannini for joining us today.
I agree with that 100%. I think the more stuff I got on my
Cam Otis Show on Facebook and Instagram, full videos of our show are available on YouTube, and the full archive of our episodes is available at www.camandotisshow.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.